sports note for Monday, October 7th, and there will be a programming note towards the end of this, so stick around. Um, as great as we had in terms of upsets in college football, uh, sometimes the more things change, the more they stay the same. Yeah, we saw number one Alabama go on the road to Vanderbilt, and this is not your dad's Vanderbilt Commodores team that was winning 3 games a year and lost. We saw number four Tennessee go on the road in the SEC to Fayetteville and lose to Arkansas. And then we also saw near and dear to my heart, unfortunately. The number nine Missouri Tigers go on the road to College Station in the 12th man and get absolutely blown off the field by Texas A&M. All three go down, and had it not been for a furious fourth quarter comeback, number eight Miami would have actually gone down to Cal in their first meeting as ACC opponents. But the one team that did hold serve, and not so much in surprising fashion considering who their opponent was, but certainly in the manner in which they did it, were the number 21 ranked Boise State Broncos and junior tailback and Heisman frontrunner Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty is essentially this year's version of a cheat code in college football. Jeanty carried 13 times for 186 yards and 3 touchdowns in Boise State's 62-30 win on the Smurf turf against Utah State. Now, granted, Utah State is not, prime competition in the Mountain West Conference, where Boise State is 4-1. It was their opening conference matchup of the year, and that one loss for Boise State was on a walk-off field goal by Oregon in the second week of the season in a game where a lot of people were not so much picking Boise State to win outright, but certainly to cover if you play those odds. And Oregon State is now up to third in the nation and will host number two Ohio State in the game of the year of the week, essentially in college football on Saturday night, and we'll be live on the Wise Guys for that, picking up with the second half. But Jeanty has got 95 carries this year and is already over 1,000 yards, and he has 16 touchdowns. Now, to have 1,000 yards through 5 games is incredible. The fact that he's done it on only his 90th carry of the season, and that occurred still in the first half, and Boise State was already up 49-17 at the half. On Boise State's first offensive play from scrimmage, Jeanty scampers 63 yards for a touchdown, and then immediately after Utah State goes 3 and out, and then on their first play of the second quarter, Jeanty scampers for 75. Now, he certainly, at only 5'9", but yet 215 pounds, he's very, very tough to bring down. He does not have game-breaking speed like a tailback typically would, but he's definitely got pull-away speed, and he's extremely tough to tackle, where lots of missed tackles. He leads the nation in broken tackles. Certainly, he leads the nation in rushing yards and touchdowns, and more on that here in a second. But he also is strong enough to where he can stiff arm a player and push them and keep them at distance, to where he can now start to use his pull-away speed as opposed to breakaway speed. Now, we talked about the fact that he's already got 1,031 yards from scrimmage. He's basically broken just about all of last year's numbers. He ran for he only ran for 14 touchdowns last year. He's already broken that. this game against Utah State, granted, his numbers were going to inflate. We just didn't actually think it was going to be this much in about 2.5 quarters worth of work because the game was so far out of reach. They figured why play him. Boise State quarterback Maddox Madsen threw for 256 yards and 3 touchdowns of his own, and Manson has 1,056 passing yards through 5 games and 10 touchdowns. His tailback is only 25 yards behind him in terms of from scrimmage, but he also has 6 more touchdowns on the ground than Manson's got through the air. Put that into perspective for just a moment. When you typically have a run first type team, the quarterback play is absolutely abysmal. Case in point, Boise State is second in the nation at 301.2 yards on the ground. The only team better than that is Army with an astonishing 361.2. But the difference is, whereas Boise State is kind of in the middle of the pack with passing, I want to say they're somewhere in the 70s. Army is second worst in the entire country at 90.6, and the only team that's worse is Air Force, who I want to say is around 76 per game. But again, Army going out and Army's 5-0 as well, and Army rushing for 360 yards and throwing for 90. Again, that's Army averaging 450 yards per game, whereas Boise State is accomplishing 301 on the ground, and they're still doing about 150, 170 in the air, and they're 4-1 and faced very good competition. Now, this is not your typical Boise State world killers like we actually remember 15 or so years ago with the likes of Jared Zabransky and Ian Johnson. Now, Ian Johnson ran for 4,158 yards in his career. Jeanty already has 3,199. He's still got 7 regular season games remaining, plus a potential bowl game. And also, what if the Broncos get into the playoff and actually get through a first round matchup, wherever it might be, and he's got a second shot to go at it. This is and you definitely have to figure, number one, not only is Ashton Jeanty the front runner for the Heisman Trophy, but number two, you actually now have to start putting him on Barry Sanders' watch, and number three, you kind of have to figure there's no way, shape, or form that he's going to come back for a senior season. He's basically going to be, if he keeps playing this way, he will be a first round pick in next April's NFL draft. And I've always been a big proponent, including the 2 live draft shows we've done as part of the Wise Guys in our first 3 years. You never draft a running back in the first round unless they are a generational type talent. Bijan Robinson a couple of years ago has the potential to get there. Ashton Jeanty is a lot more of a traditional one-dimensional type back because I believe he's got less than 20 catches out of the backfield this year and no touchdowns through the air, because why would you, especially when you've already rushed for over 1,000 yards in 5 games. And the Broncos are already starting to look ahead for in 2 weeks' time, where they're going to be on the road against UNLV. Now, a UNLV team that was ranked up until Saturday, where they lost the first time they were ever ranked in the polls. And Boise State's got to be right now licking their chops for an opportunity to go on the road, prove themselves. Their 21st ranking is only going to continue to climb up and up and up, and especially with some of the parity that we've now seen in the Power Four conferences with all of the transitions going around. Oklahoma has not been what we actually thought that they would be going to the SEC. Certainly, this is going to lend credence to the argument of is Boise State back, because let's be honest, sometimes the sequel or the reboot is nowhere near as good as the original. When Boise State was getting to BCS games and the infamous upset of Oklahoma in that Fiesta Bowl where Johnson proposed to his girlfriend on the sideline after scoring the winning 2 point conversion, talking with Chris Myers of Fox Sports at that point. Jeanty's going to break Johnson's record. It's only a matter of when. At that point, he's 1,600 yards behind. If he does come back, he's going to put that so far out of reach at Boise State that it's never going to be eclipsed. But you have to start thinking that he is on pace to break Barry Sanders' record of 2,688 yards in a single season with the level of competition that's in the Mountain West Conference. We all know that the Big 12 is a very pass-happy league. They score a lot of points. The Mountain West is a shootout conference. Nobody really plays defense at all, and it's a lot of offense, and it's a lot of points, and especially for Boise State right now, who is averaging, they've scored 45 or more in 4 of their first 5 games, and the only one that they didn't was the loss to Oregon, where they still put up, I want to say it was 34. I don't have the number directly in front of me here, but he's slated to shatter Johnson's mark in at least 75 fewer carries. He's also got the ability right now, no pun intended here, for them to ride him as far as they will go, and as he can go. And Jeanty, especially with the fact of how many guys it takes to bring him down, has got the durability to be able to carry this team, really to potentially run the table in the Mountain West and get a group of 5 bid, but even would be considered an at-large bid, even if not a group of 5 team. Could they possibly sneak into maybe a top 8 to where they could maybe even host a first-round game? And how interesting would that be for a team, maybe like a Tennessee, a Georgia, I'm not trying to throw all these SEC teams out there, but, depending on how the outcome of Saturday's game, possibly like an Ohio State, like going on the road out to Boise in December, and how special would that be for a stadium that certainly doesn't seat nearly the amount of really any of the other powerhouses out there. Now, the only thing that's really going to stand in the way of Jeanty getting to 2,000, and also really at this point Boise State running the table through the Mountain West Conference, is going to be really Jeanty himself, because if he goes out and he actually has too big of a game, and they actually start blowing teams out the way that they did Utah State, where they were already up, again, 32 points at the half, Jeanty's going to end up getting a lot of time off from head coach Spencer Danielson, and deservedly so. Jeanty is nearly 300 yards ahead of his next closest competitor in all of college football, and that would be, I'm trying to remember his name. He plays with Iowa, and he's only got 700 and some odd yards, like 770, 750, somewhere in there. He's essentially kind of got the rushing title locked up in college football already, and certainly he will be a finalist at the Downtown Athletic Club, um, sometime in December here. But it's also a matter of, as great as his awards would be and as great as a Heisman would be, to go to a smaller school player like this, you know, can't remember the last time it's happened really off the top of any of our heads, unless you're a bit of a historian. Um, but let's actually see how far this goes, and does Boise have enough to be able to possibly make a run here with not only getting into the college football playoff, but maybe win a couple of games here and prove that, yeah, Boise State's back, even if it's for one season, and the Giant Killer moniker will always live on that Smurf turf. So let me know what you guys think. Is Jeanty your Heisman favorite? Is there somebody else on your list? Do you think he stays? Do you think he goes? And that programming note is coming to you live on Thursday night. We will actually be doing Watch a Game with JC Blue Note, where I'm going to try once per week to do a random watch along for an NHL game. And this week will be one of my favorite teams in all of hockey. It will be the home opener for the Buffalo Sabres. And while the game will start at 7 p.m., I will start coverage somewhere around 6:45. We'll go as long as I can after coming off of work and probably getting in a quick workout if I actually find that the game is turning into a bit of a laugher, or I just kind of hit the wall and need to get to bed. I will let you guys know, but we'll try it out. We'll see what happens, and I will see you guys on Thursday night, hopefully. Take care.